Well, welcome everybody to today's class. Like to see all the familiar faces from all today. So thank you guys very much for being here today with us. Real quickly, for those of you who haven't been here all day today, this is your first class. My name is Anthony. I work here at Orange County Realtors. Been here now for almost 19 years. Started off in the MLS department. Guaranteed I'll speak to you regarding rules and regulations and how-tos and all that other fun stuff. What I'm also involved with is our outreach program. Our outreach program basically will give you training on all your tools and products. So not only do I train or give trainings on MLS, how to run searches, anonymize the listings, everything, but I also train on zipForms, which has been our big topic all day today, from beginners to digital signing to what our class is today, advanced digital inks tools, or I'm sorry, advanced zipForms tools, sorry. And of course, I love training on tech. I love showing agents how they can utilize their technology to be able to become better, more efficient agents. So with that said, today we're going to go over a lot of really advanced tools that I didn't go over in the first class or the second class today. That's really going to help out a lot with your transactional lives. Okay. I always love starting off everybody here within zipForms to show them at least 3 major tools that were implemented about 8 years ago. Some of you might have seen some of these before, or maybe you just didn't think about it and you're just like, oh, wow, that seems convenient. But I want to specifically talk about them. That way you totally understand why you can or can't do certain things within the program. The first thing that we're going to start off with here today is what they call the mutually exclusive fields. Now, by the way, are there any questions before we get started? And by the way, just in case, we are recording today's webinar. So everybody attending today will get a copy of today's class. Also, if you haven't noticed, I do talk fairly quickly because I know, how much time you guys have on your calendars. And thank you very much for spending the time with me today to learn about your tools. But if I do talk too quickly, I apologize. Please stop me, write your questions in the chat box or the Q&A box. I'll read them back to the audience and read them and answer your questions. So I'll stop what I'm doing, go over the question, and then continue on. Okay. But no matter what, we are recording today. And again, everybody will receive a copy of today's class. So again, are there any questions before we dive into the nitty-gritty? Just taking a quick drink here. Okay. All right. Well, the first thing that we're going to talk about today is one of your tools in zipForms called the mutually exclusive field. Now, the mutually exclusive field in a form says that you can't select one choice and then try to select its exact polar opposite. Okay. Tina Marie asked, missed one class. Can I still get the recording? Sure, Tina. Feel free to email me, tony@ocar.org, or I'm sorry, tony@ocrealtors.org. And there just say which class you missed. I missed the first class, the second class. Can I please get the recording? And I'll make sure that you get that recording as well. Is that okay? All right. So the mutually exclusive field says that you can't select a choice in a contract and then try to select its exact polar opposite. Now, to show you this as an example, here on the purchase agreement, here under paragraph 1, section D, close of escrow, says here that you can close escrow either on a particular date or in a number of days. Now, prior to this feature, agents used to say, write in a date and then put in different days. So as an example, maybe they wrote in here August 31st, which that is what, 2 weeks from now. But then they wrote also in here a 45-day escrow. So which is it? Are you planning to close on August 31st, which is in 2 weeks, or are you doing a 45-day escrow? This is where you can only select one of the 2 choices. So if you, as an example, you wrote in here August 31st, you'll notice here that the moment I select the days, it immediately blacks out or zeroes out the date. So the moment I select this exact polar opposite, it takes out the other choice. So I can either have one or the other, even though it says either this or this. In the past, prior to this feature, agents were marking both. This was really complicated for the type of offer. Is it an all cash or is this a loan? So agents used to mark all cash, but also have all the loan details typed in for a loan. So a lot of sellers and a lot of listing agents were receiving offers and they were very confused. Is this an all cash offer or is this a loan? So now if you select one choice, so say if I had, even from my template list here, say 5%, getting a loan amount, right? The moment I select all cash, all the loan information now becomes blanked out and I cannot change anything here. So this is an exact polar opposite. Now, what's also interesting is that also when I select all cash, further down on the form, when it comes to say the loan contingency and appraisal contingencies, these features also zero out as well. And let me see here. Where is that in the form? Possession, time of possession. I know that here in the form, when it talks about the loan contingency, the areas for them to, for you to be able to write in the days becomes blanked. So you can't write anything in there for your loan contingency period because there is technically no loan on an all cash property. Just so you know. So they took that feature out. So that's the, and by the way, it's not just the purchase agreement that this feature is with, it's other contracts as well, like the listing agreements and other forms. So if there's something that has an either or situation, it won't let you select both. Okay. At least by mistake. Are there any questions on this feature? The next feature that was added in 8 years ago, there it is. So all cash. There you go. Verification of down payment, closing costs, all becomes zeroed out. Like the loan applications become zeroed out here because you can't modify that once you select all cash. The next feature, auto adding addendums. So the auto adding addendum feature says that if you're in a form and you select a choice that requires a form to be added to the transaction, the system will now automatically add that form to your transaction. Now, this was this has been very helpful over the past 8 years because prior to this, as an example, if an agent selected, say, the short sale addendum that needed to be with the offer, they accidentally, because of their busy lives, used to forget to add in the short sale addendum to the transaction to fill it out. So now what happens with this feature is that if I select a choice that says a form is now required, like the short sale addendum, the system now all of a sudden, very quickly and easily says that that form has now been added as part of the transaction. Okay, so if we back out, we see that now that form has been added to the transaction. So here, if I delete it out real quick, go back into the form. And show when I select adding this form, at the top here, form short sale addendum was successfully added to the transaction. Now, here's the catcher though. If I accidentally selected a document and I realized, oh, whoops, wait a minute, I don't need that document because I meant to select the septic tank well, but not the short sale addendum. What the system will not do is that if I unselect it, it will not automatically remove it. from the transaction. So once a form is added to the transaction, it does not automatically get removed. So how do we remove the form? Well, there are two major ways that we can remove the form. First way, the long way, is this. While I'm in a form and I need to remove a document from the transaction itself, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here to the top left corner, click back so that I can get out of the form that I'm editing and see all the other form documents that are in the transaction. Now what I can do is click or select the form by clicking on the checkbox in the upper left corner of the form. Now at the very top of the screen, I get several menu choices, one of which says delete. If I click on the delete button here, it'll ask me, are you absolutely sure you want to delete this form or document? I'm going to say yes. Now, once I do that, the form is now officially removed from the transaction. That's the long way. So here, what I can do is I can now select multiple documents right here. Whoops. Now I can hit delete and delete out all these documents and folders all at the same time. Now, that's the long way. The quick way is this. Because I'm in a form and I don't want to leave the form that I'm currently editing just to remove a document. So, whoops, I accidentally selected too many. I don't need these for the offer. How do I delete these out? Well, I don't want to have to go back to delete them. Instead, what I'm going to do over here at the top middle, we'll say my forms. Right above the form, it says my forms. When I click on the my forms choice here, a list of all the forms and documents that are in this transaction now appear. Now, what's cool about this is that, say I'm done editing this form, instead of hitting back to get out of the form and then go and click on another form to edit, just simply click on where it says my forms, and I can now click on the next form that I want to modify very quickly and easily. But from here, under my forms, if I need a form removed or deleted, just simply click the minus sign next to the form that I want removed. And then I just say yes, and that gets rid of that form. So again, click on the minus sign and say yes, and that deletes the form. So now what we can do is very quickly and easily delete out these forms that we accidentally added to the transaction. And again, being in the form, I can make sure that I have edited the form to make sure that those fields are uncheck marked, and then go in and delete out those forms. What's the harm in leaving forms you don't need? Just convolutes the transaction. So if you've got extra forms that you don't need, why have it there, right? Especially if you're trying to print out things or sign things or put things in your files. You know, it's like just needless paperwork. Other than just being clean and tidy. Yeah, you always want clean and tidy documents, right? You know, our lives, especially in real estate, are already chaotic as it is, trying to keep track of everything. Do I want to keep track of forms that aren't needed for the transaction? And a lot of times you may get so busy, the last thing you want to do is go, gosh, why is this form here? Maybe I actually needed it and didn't realize I needed to fill it out. Let me go and fill it out now. To only find out then, geez, you don't need it. Now, all of a sudden, what does that make you look in the eyes of the other agent as well as your clients? So I would say if you don't need it, don't put it in the transaction. Just want to make sure it's not a bigger reason, but yeah, that's good. Yeah, that's simple. I mean, if you don't need it, why put it in there? Short, simple, sweet, right? The KISS, K-I-S, keep it simple. Keep it simple. That's all we need to do. So are there any questions about the auto adding addendum? And of course, obviously deleting out forms and contracts from the transaction. All right, real quickly, the third cool tool that was added 8 years ago was called the ToA Form. The TOA stands for Text Overflow Addendum. Okay. What this form allows you to do, or what this feature allows you to do, is be able to be as wordy as you need to be on a contract without having to necessarily manually add in an addendum to the form. So in the past, as an example, here on this form, the purchase agreement under the additional financing terms, you only have the allotted 2 lines. But what happens if you have to be super detailed about what it is or what other things need to happen financially for the clients to get their offers or for their offer, right? Now, in the past, some agents used to say, see it attached addendum. Then they go over to all forms, grab an addendum, pull it back over, write on that form, see purchase agreement, subsection 3 or paragraph 3, subsection E for additional financing terms. And then they write, but then they run out of room on that. And then they got to add another one and another one and another one. Why do that to yourself? Let's make our lives super easy. So say as an example here, under the additional financing terms, I'm going to click in this box. And again, we only see that there's 2 lines of text here, but now we're just going to write in the other financing terms that need to happen, right? Or that need to be on this form, like, geez, buyers have a savings account of 1.2 million. They also have a Swiss bank account of $6.8 million. And of course, they're being gifted a $50,000 gift from their in-laws on their mother's side. And of course, Jeff just won the $1.8 billion California lotto and is waiting for the check to clear as we speak. Okay. Here you just saw me write in a bunch of lines of text. But when we click outside that, we're only going to see the first 2 lines of text that we wrote in here, right? If I click here, we're going to see that there's a lot of text here. So what's going to happen when I either print out the form or sign the form or send it out for digital signatures? Well, the auto adding text overflow addendum will take this text and put it on what they call the TOA, the text overflow addendum. And that will be automatically attached to the last page of this contract. So this is what the clients will see when I send it out for digital signatures, or I print it out on my printer, or even if I save it as a PDF file. So when we go to preview here, we're going to see, as we scroll down on this form, that under section 3, subsection E, we've got under additional financing terms, automatically it says see text overflow addendum, CAR form TOA paragraph 1. It says that automatically. Well, where's the text? Where's all that paragraph that I just wrote in? Well, this form has now been officially attached after the last page of the contract. So I won't see it while I'm editing it, but when I do things like this, where it's now a PDF file, this feature automatically kicks in. So when we are looking at the last page of the contract, or we get past the last page of the contract, which in this case is the California Consumer Protection Advisory, we're going to see here that automatically there is a new form. Text overflow addendum. Number 1. Right away, it automatically puts in RPA paragraph 3E, additional financing terms. And of course, there's all the financing terms. Now, this is a big, long form. So what does this mean? This means that you can be as wordy as you need to be. Even in different sections of the form itself, if we did the exact same thing for everything, so maybe, I don't know, let's go with the following additional items: the TV, the washer, the dryer, the gun rack, the gun case, what else? And everything else in the house, the wine cellar, and all the bottles of wine that are coming with me, right? So here we're just writing that on here, but again, it cuts off. And again, when we preview this as a PDF, and we now go to that section of the form, it's now going to say, see text overflow addendum paragraph 2. So here we got paragraph 1, right? So we got paragraph 1 under the text overflow addendum for the additional financing terms. But we come down below section 8. There we go. See text overflow addendum paragraph 2. So now it's automatically put both those paragraphs on this form for us. And again, we can be as wordy as we need to be on these contracts. Now, this form kicks in on every and all forms that you go beyond the allotted lines of given text. Okay, so this doesn't just work on the purchase agreement or the listing agreement, it works on every form. So forms like the repair request or the response to the repair request, where you're listing a ton of items in that repair request that the client wants fixed for the seller to respond to, or maybe you're doing the AVID, the agent visual inspection disclosure. And even though you've got 3 lines per room, well, what happens if there's a lot of things that are wrong with the room that you're finding, right? Well, there's no need for you to say, see addendum, it automatically does it. So you can write everything you need to about that room that you noticed. And no matter what, it will automatically attach this contract or this form to that contract. Okay. Let's see here. Stephanie goes, that's so cool. Are you hitting enter after you type a paragraph? Nope, not at all. I'm just typing the lines of text and keep on typing. So I can be as wordy as I need to be for the descriptors or the, the verbiage that I need to say to get this point across. Let's see, or just clicking out of the text box and it just automatically adds it to the ToA. Yeah, I just click outside the box. So as I'm writing text on the form itself, I'm just clicking outside that box, and now it knows because I've gone by the allotted lines of text here, that's automatically going to put that on there. How many, after how many characters or words does that overtext? It depends on the line. Some lines will have enough allotment for 30 characters, another one 60 characters. So it just really depends on the line in the contract. But no matter what, even if I go past the allotted line of text by even 1 character, it's going to throw this entire text on that overflow. Does that help, David? Can you edit on the ToA? No, because that text is originally on this form. So the ToA is not even here. So you don't even see it. Why? Because it's in the background waiting to have the extra text placed on it. So it's something programmed that's been programmed to automatically kick in once the system picks that up. Now there is a ToA form, but it doesn't work the same way. So you could add it manually, and actually, I guess not. They took it away. But you can add in an addendum. But why do that when you have this feature? Can I edit on the text overflow addendum? There's no need to edit on the actual ToA form. It's actually on the contract itself that you're editing. So good. It looks like everybody liked that one. It looks like Pat and Eric had the same question. Can you edit on the ToA form? Yeah, no, you just edit the regular form that the text is automatically going to go on. And again, you could have the ToA form, you could have 4 or 5 ToAs on one form, right? So I could go and use up that entire ToA with 1 paragraph or with 1 section. And then the second one will automatically kick in if I do it to another paragraph or another section. So, but there is a lot of lines of text on that ToA that you should never have to worry about that. And what's really cool is, say we have the purchase agreement and we've got the ToA one here, but then I do my AVID. and I have a TOA on that one, well, that will be TOA1 for the Avid. And again, they're attached to the document, so there's no way of being able to mix up the two different forms for two different contracts. Does that make sense? If the TOA addendum number 1 is full, does it automatically create a second page? Yes, if needed. Yes. So that's a great question, Irene. So yes, if I run out of room on the first one, the second one will automatically kick in. You guys like that? Yes, excellent. All right. Next fun thing to do. Back here, clauses. I love talking about clauses. Clauses are verbiage that you may need to use on forms depending on certain situations. Okay. So certain forms sometimes may require you to say certain things. Now, how would you know what to say on a particular form at any given time? Well, this is where your broker is going to advise you. So sometimes maybe a broker will say, if you're in a counteroffer situation XYZ, then you should say ABC, right? Or maybe you're in a probate situation whereby you need to use the probate purchase agreement or a probate listing agreement. You need to say this on that form. We'll take that verbiage and make it into clauses. Okay. Even if it's a situation where you go, well, geez, I don't deal with probates all that often. I'll make the one transaction, get my broker to tell me, and then that's it, right? Well, what happens if maybe 1,000 transactions later, you come across another probate, right? Well, do you want to have to hunt and peck through 1,000 transactions just to see what your broker advised you to say when dealing with a probate? No. This is where having clauses will help you. So clauses basically are verbiage or terms based on certain situations that you might need to use periodically. Okay. Now, how would you know what you would need to say? Well, ask your broker. Sit down with your broker and say, based on this particular situation, what should I say on the form to protect myself and my clients? And they will tell you. Write it down and then make it into a clause. That way, if you ever come across that same situation ever again, where you might need a particular form or whatever, well, now you've got the verbiage that you can now in your clause list to be able to apply to any future transactions this day forward. So how do we create a clause? Back here at the transaction list, what we're going to do is we're going to move our mouse to where it says TXN tools. Okay. Now, when we click on the TXN tools, we get our list of drop-down choices here, one of which says clause manager. Now, here in the clause manager, this is where we're going to be able to create and modify any clauses. Okay. Now, the reason why they have the library of clauses here is for those of you with the broker edition of zipForms. Now, if you're using, or excuse me, certain companies like Berkshire Hathaway, or sometimes First Team or Remax, or even Realty One has what they call the broker edition, where they give a list of clauses and templates to their agents because the agents don't log into their personal accounts, they log into their company accounts. But again, not every office has something like this. So what you're not going to do is worry about the library of clauses. What you do care about is your personal clauses, the things that you know you should have in storage for your forms for just in case. And what I mean by that, the verbiage. So in this case, I'm going to go to personal clauses. Oops, wait a minute. YC asks, if we delete the overflow text from the RPA, will the extra text on the TOA delete? Unfortunately, YC, you can't delete the TOA. The TOA is something that's automatically added if and only if the text on a form goes beyond the allotted lines of text. Again, if we look at this purchase agreement just in the editable format, right? You're going to notice here that after that CCPA, the California Consumer Protection Advisory, there is no text overflow addendum here, right? It's because while I'm editing this form, this text exists on that particular line or sets of lines, right? Like this one here, the following items are to be included, right? in the purchase of the sale. Well, once I go and put this into PDF mode, whether I preview it, email it, send it out for digital signatures, or I print it out on my printer, that ToA will automatically appear here with those lines of text. So again, see text overflow addendum, right? Instead of seeing the words, and here we'll just look at that one sentence here, right? The following additional items, well, it says see text overflow addendum. There was no way around that, right? We literally have to go past that CCPA again. And we see that the text overflow addendum is here. So there is no reason for us to delete this out. If we delete this out, then where's the terms? So this is part of the terms of the contract. They're just placing it on an addendum for you to be able to say what you need to say regarding that section without having to add an addendum to say exactly what you're saying here. Okay, the system just does this for you. Okay, and the only way to remove this is if I were to take out the text, where now I'm well within the parameters of that form. So now when we preview this document, and we go back to paragraph 8, subsection B, subparagraph 3, there's the words of text. So if you notice here, it doesn't say see text overflow addendum paragraph 2. So because we're well within those parameters, that's the only way that that ToA won't display that text, right? You don't see a paragraph 2 anymore. Does that help, YC? If we change the wording, would the ToA update automatically? Of course, because you're updating the verbiage here. So now if I just say I come back in here and I now change it and say we add in, whoops. We'll take out buyers and we're going to say Steve and Wanda, right? So now when we preview this, it's now going to say Steve and Wanda on that paragraph, right? But it's going to be on the ToA. So once that's, because I'm editing that text. So here, if we scroll down real quickly, it still says Steve text overflow addendum. But now when we go to that text overflow addendum, see how it says Steve and Wanda instead of buyer. Michael asks, is there a way to import clauses into a personal clause? No, you have to actually create it, which we're going back over to. Irene, awesome. All right, so back to clauses. So here under clauses, we're going to create a couple of clauses here that we may need to populate in on our forms from time to time, right? And I'm just going to use some fun little examples today. But here under the clause manager, to create a clause, we're going to go to our personal clauses. Here again, we don't have any clauses created, but maybe during an office meeting, the broker says, if you ever use this form for this particular reason, you should say XYZ. Okay. Make sure you write it down. Now what you're going to do with that verbiage, you're going to make it into a clause. So how do we make a clause? Here in the top middle, we're going to say new clause. Now we need to select or create a category. Well, if we've never created clauses before, we have no categories. So just make a category, name it. So maybe we have a category called seller. Now we're going to name the clause, something that we know exactly what should be in this clause. So maybe we were going to say choice of services. And now we're going to type in the text of what the actual clause says. And then all we need to do is hit save. That's how easy it is to make a clause. So how do you do that? Go under Clause Manager, which is under TXN Tools. Go to Personal Clauses, click on Create New or New Clause. Now we're going to make a category for a buyer. This one's going to be called Choice of Service. And now we're going to write this one. Buyer's choice of escrow services. So now we've got a category for a seller. We got a category for a buyer. We've got our clauses here. Here you can make as many clauses as you need. Maybe we have counter language for the buyer side. And actually, not the buyer side. Let's make it seller side. And seller counters with highest and best offer. Buyer to cook for seller every third Sunday of the month for 1 year after close of escrow. Buyers to give firstborn to sellers at COE +3 and secondborn at COE or 9 months after COE. Whatever you need, right? Whatever your broker has told you, you should write in your counteroffer, right? Which, hey, who doesn't like being cooked for the next month, you know, every third Sunday of the month for the next year, right? Who knows? But no matter what, put in all your various different clauses for your various different situations, the probate language, the counter language, the forms that you don't always use that the broker has advised you, if for whatever reason you need to ever use this form for this situation, you should say this, make it into a clause. Now, with your clauses made, you're now ready to apply that verbiage to a form, okay? So how do we apply a clause to a form? Very easy. What we're going to do is we're going to go into a form. Doesn't matter where we're going to be here in this case, but be in a form, come in to the area of the form that you wish to apply the clause to. Okay. Now, to apply a clause just simply click on the line where you want to add in text. Now, you'll notice here that typically when we click on a line, we get our cursor and we can type if we choose. Okay. But you probably have not noticed this icon right above the line, and that is this pencil icon. Now, this pencil icon stands for modify. So what I'm going to do is I'm now going to modify something on this line. Okay, now when I click on this pencil icon, we're going to see here that we have several icons, one of which is the clause manager icon. That's the far left icon here. So what I'm telling the system to do when I click on that line and I click on that pencil is to insert a clause. Now what I can do is I can now find the clause that I need from the category, from the title, and now I can say insert that language. And now we've just inserted that clause on this line in the form. So how we did that, again, click on the line, click on the pencil icon, click on the clause icon. Now find the clause by selecting the category, the title, and then say insert. Just that simple. So now I've saved myself some time and effort not having to write in or try to remember what it is that my broker told me I should say on this form or for this situation. Anybody like that? Yes, excellent. All right, now there's a couple of extra things here. Now you notice here that it typed in or it put in the verbiage exactly how I typed it in my clauses, right? And this also happens a lot when we're editing the forms too, because maybe a lot of times when we're editing a document, we go, oh, you know what, I should have capitalized this or I should have capitalized that. Sometimes you just can't click on that section. right? To rewrite it over, right? But that's okay. You don't need to do that. Instead, maybe if we want to change the casing of the words, when we click on the pencil icon next to the clause manager, we have these other icons. Now, these other icons indicate if we want to capitalize, lowercase, the words or the letters on that line. So as an example here, the first one says or indicates that every first letter of every word will be capitalized. So when I select that, you'll notice here that now every first letter of every word is now capitalized, or I can make everything lowercase as it was before, or I can make everything uppercase. Now, the nice thing about the uppercase is that now we can make things stand out, especially in that counter offer or that repair request. So now we can emphasize what it is that we're trying to get across in this particular line or this line item. Does everybody like that? Stephanie asked, yes, you can make one for offering per diem from the lender. Of course, you can make a clause regarding anything for any situation that you need to say something on a form. I would always ask your broker, should you say certain things on a form, just to make sure that, again, you're minimizing risk to not only yourself, but to your client. But yeah, you can create as many clauses as you want for as many different scenarios as you need. And of course, for the various different forms. And you don't have to worry about, oh, geez, I got to rewrite it over to capitalize this word or that word. Nope. Just modify it after you insert it in, or after you type it in, modify it and change the casing willy-nilly. All these secrets make creating forms so easy. Thank you, Tina. I try to make it easy. All right, are there any questions on clauses? All right. Oh, you're welcome, Amy. All right, next. Creating transactions quickly and easily. So if you were here at the first class, we went over MLS Connect. Anybody remember what MLS Connect is? Yes, Eric, what is MLS Connect? Stephanie says yes as well. Okay, so for those of you who don't know what MLS Connect is, MLS Connect allows you to import MLS listing data for your contracts. You're right, auto-populates information directly from the MLS. And as I explained earlier in that class, it's great for when you're representing a buyer or a tenant on a property, because now you can take that MLS data and import it onto your contracts when you're creating up your offers. For those of you who weren't here for that class, it's really simple to use. Excuse me. What you're going to do is you're going to come over here to where it says new. You're going to choose new offer. You're going to name the property address or name the transaction. Choose the category residential. But first, before you go down, we're going to come over here to where it says MLS Connect. From here, we can choose the property listing type to coincide with our offer or our lead, our tenant. And then we're going to type in the MLS number to the listing. Now, when we hit find, all that MLS listing information that's pertinent for our contracts is now ready to be populated because we found the listing. We're now going to say use this listing information. And now from here, because we went over what templates were, I can now apply. And actually, that's my listing template. I'm going to apply my purchase template to this transaction. So now all those forms and of course all the listing information has now been put on the contract. So if we look at this real quickly, we see here that we've got the listing agent information here. We've got the property address. If my information was on my templates, I would see my information. And then all I just got to do is just go through and put in the stuff that's specific to make our offer. So we did all that in less than what, 3 minutes? But geez, what happens if you're doing a listing? Wouldn't this be nice to have for a listing? Because MLS Connect is not really great if you're representing a seller on a property or a landlord on the property. Now, why is that? Well, technically, I don't have a listing into the MLS yet until I get a signed listing agreement. So there's nothing to populate. Now, oh, Tina goes, auto pops only for OCAR or can do other MLSs. Any listing that's in the MLS, you just got to make sure you put in the right MLS number. So if it's a listing, say at, what is it? Claw, which is LA. Our listings in the MLS for LA actually have a pre number or a pre, what is it called? A pre-designation. So if you were in Claw, it would show one way, but in our MLS, it shows something in addition to. Because you're in the CRMLS matrix system, when you go to MLS Connect that listing, just make sure that you put in the full MLS listing number that you see on the listing. So if it says something like CDAR-127895, right? Put that entire number in, because without that key set of numbers from the other MLSs that are in our MLS database, you won't be able to find the property. Now, if you're talking about other MLS systems that do not data share with CRMLS, then MLS Connect is not going to help you in this regard, because this is only good for those agents that are part of the CRMLS system. Because again, this is a free member benefit to our MLS members. So if they belong to Sacramento or Bakersfield or one of those other areas that do not data share any of their listings with our MLS system, then that tool is not going to help you. Okay. As a matter of fact, you probably won't even have access to that listing without certain special things. Okay. Does that help? Drat. So your magic is only limited. But wait a minute. Don't stop me here. There is another way of being able to populate data, but this is going to be really good for your seller side. And that is using a tool called RPR, or in this case, View RPR. Now, what RPR stands for Realtor Property Resource. Now, Realtor Property Resource is a free NAR, National Association of Realtors member benefit. And what this tool allows you to do is to be able to look at tax data and some MLS data on properties within the United States. So you're not limited to just California. You can look at any property data, more than 66 million properties nationwide. Okay. Now, again, this is a free member benefit tool to you. Now, before you can start using it in zipForms, you do have to activate your free account. Now, how do we activate our free account for RPR? That's all going to start with the MLS system. First, log into the MLS system. From here, you're going to, after you log into the MLS, you're going to move your mouse to the Links tab. Here under the Links tab, you're going to be able to access all of your third-party member benefit tools. One of these tools is called Realtor Property Resource RPR. Now, when you click on this, you should be taken into a login area. Now, I was logged into this yesterday. I don't think I logged out. So it looks like it's signing me in, which is great. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to sign out real quick. So when you get to this screen here, after you click on that link, what you're going to do is click on Create New Account. You're going to activate it. It's going to ask you for your NRDS number. It's going to ask you for your email address associated with the MLS system. Okay. Then you're going to fill out your profile. Okay. Now, once you do that, You're then going to be taken to a screen where you can now, or come back to the home screen, and now you can run any type of property search anywhere. Okay. You can know the specific address. Now, I love this tool for creating really super amazing CMAs. So yes, Cloud CMA is a really good tool if you have enough MLS data, but there are times where maybe you don't have any MLS data to create a really good CMA from. Come here to RPR and you can create beautiful looking CMAs. So here, as an example, I'm just going to type in a property address. And come on. Oh, that's because I'm looking at active properties. Just public records, search. So here we find the property. We can now look at the full property details. We got the estimated price, when it was closed, this, that, and the other. Here we can make CMAs. If we wanted to, we can see what schools they've been vetted to go to, this, that, and the other. Okay. So ideally, what you can do here, say you have a listing appointment. From here, we've activated our account. What we're going to do is we're going to go back into zipForms. We're going to click on this View RPR button right at the transaction area, and we're going to link the two together, because zipForms and RPR look and see that we have an NRDS number, that we should be able to use both of these tools. And this tool here will allow me to create transactions based on the tax record information. So I'm in RPR. I pull up the property report. I do my CMA. At the end of the day, my client goes, or this potential client goes, Tony, I really liked your presentation. I want you to be my listing agent. Now, right there at the table, I'm going to actually write up the contracts right in front of them. I'm not going to leave their site. I'm not going to leave them. I'm not going to go back to my office 3 hours later. And in that time, while I'm writing up contracts, they go, oh, well, you know what? We decided to change our minds. Instead, I'm going to have my computer or my tablet device in front of them. I'm going to be logged into the MLS system, or even in zipForms. I'm going to click on that View RPR. I'm going to pull up their property data. And from here, under the property summary, there's a button here that says Transactions zipForms Edition. Now, when I click on Connect, it immediately asks me, do I want to start a brand new transaction in zipForms? I'm going to say, start a new transaction. Well, what side of the transaction am I going to be dealing with? Am I dealing with the listing side, the purchase side, or the lease side? Well, we're going to be listing this property, which, by the way, Tina, if this property is listed, but with a different MLS system that doesn't data share, I can say, let's make a purchase offer transaction in zipForms, and it will populate in the listing information, or some of the listing information on the contracts. Okay, so you're not limited at that point, which is really cool. The only thing is does that MLS system data share its MLS data with RPR? Not everyone does, but most do. So I usually like this for the listing side. Now, when I say, okay, in less than 3, 2, 1, we've made the transaction in zipForms. Now, how do we know that? Well, we're going to close this out. I'm going to go back into zipForms. I'm going to refresh my transaction list here by just simply click on the tab. And we see there is the 6 Clearwater transaction pre-created. Well, geez, I didn't say create new. I didn't write in it. It just made it for me. Now, when I go into this transaction, we're going to see the listing data already populated here, pulled from the tax data. Now, I have 2 things I can do here. I can either come over to where it says all forms at the top right corner of the screen and now add the forms manually, or if I have templates created, like we talked about in our first class this morning, I can come over to where it says apply a template. Now I'm going to find my listing template. for my sellers. And now I'm going to say apply. So now the contracts have just been added in less than 30 seconds. So right now it just took us 2 minutes to make the transaction. And now by applying the template, I've now just added all the forms. Now here's the cool part. When I go into a form, we're going to see some cool stuff. Number one, we should see the homeowner's name. So right away, I see that Fan Zhu or Shu is the homeowner on this property. Now, if it was vested in a trust or an LLC, it's going to have the trust or LLC name here as well. Now, all I need to do, hey, Fan, let me get your email address. Let me type it in on the cover sheet. Come down below, we see here, here's the property data information, all pulled from the tax records. So now I can make the list price, whatever I need it to be. List date, expiration date, everything else that I need while sitting in front of the client or doing a Zoom meeting in front of the client. So here we are quickly and efficiently writing up the contracts. Okay, not a problem. Let me send it out to you for e-signatures. Let's just sign them. Boom. Now I can go right in front of them and list the property in the MLS because it's ready to go. It's show ready. You know, they've done everything perfectly. Time is of the essence. So this is a really good tool to now, that view RPR button, to now create our transactions quickly and easily for our sellers. So we got RPR or MLS Connect for our buyers. We've got RPR for our sellers. And we can use RPR also for our buyers that are buying properties in other sections or other parts of the state that do not data share with CRMLS. But we are a California licensed agent, so we can buy and sell properties anywhere in the state of California. So maybe Tina has an opportunity to list a property up in, you know, San Francisco or Sacramento. But even though she doesn't have access to the MLSs up there, she can at least get the contracts done for her clients by just simply importing that data. Does that help? Are there any questions on RPR? And I love giving classes on RPR. I think I have one coming up in the next couple of weeks. But if not, you know, feel free to reach out to me and I can show you how you can make a CMA using it and some other useful tools with it. But yeah, I think it's a really awesome tool to try out. You know, besides that, you can really, you know, and again, you can look at any property in the United States. So if you wanted to, and just to show you what I mean, here, I'm just going to look up a property, 318 Gale in, oh, I don't know, was it Winterville, North Carolina. So here we can look at this property in North Carolina and look at the tax data information, who owns it, some public facts about the property. If the property was listed, we would see the MLS data, like the property description, the private remarks, the listing agent's name, phone number, so we can reach out to that agent. Maybe, geez, my client's thinking about buying investment property out of state. Well, this is a great way of being able to look at what's out there and talk to the listing agents and maybe get a referral fee. All sorts of cool stuff that you can do with RPR. Are there any questions on this tool? Can you see the active listings as well? Of course. So say we go back into RPR. In this case, when I go to the home screen, we're going to see, I'm just going to look for active property here in my selected region. And we see there are a lot of properties that are currently active, but also have open house scheduled. So here's a property on 18402 Gina in Huntington Beach. Open house is scheduled for 8/21 from 12 to 3. I can click on the full details. So not only do I get to see the tax record data, but I also get to see the listing agent, their phone number. We see here that the property's also got a co-listing agent on it. We see their private remarks section, and we also see their public description as well as the photos to the listing. What we don't see here are certain private things like the commission, the showing instructions, things like that. But we at least can be in contact with the listing agent or the co-listing agent. And again, I can come down below, click on transactions here and say, create it for, an offer or a purchase. Does that help, Irene? Kind of cool, huh? Yeah, I love this tool. I think it's really neat. I love the fact that you can see the open house public 12 to 3. How about out of state listings? Yeah, there are out of state properties here. Again, like California, not every MLS data shares with RPR, but if they do, you pretty much see the exact same information. So again, if I go to the home tab here and I'm looking for in my search, I don't know, what city do you want to pull property data for? North Carolina. Okay. So here I can say for sale, any particular area in North Carolina? Charlotte. I think I spelled North Carolina right. Charlotte, Texas, Ohio. Let's go Riley, North Carolina. And hopefully I spelled that right. Oh, status section is required. There you go. So here, what should happen is it's going to analyze the map and it's going to tell me how many listings are in there. It's only going to display like maybe the first, 500 or so. But as I zoom in, it's going to have that. New York, same thing. New York. And again, when we zoom in, yeah, see there are more than 500 results. So now here are all the active properties. And again, when we go and click on that, Max Sherman, here's his phone number, his email address, co-agent Eugene, listed at $899, assessed value at $707. Again, if they have the photos on there, we should see them. And a nice little property description. And of course, we don't see the agent remarks because they don't deal with that. So does that help, Tina? Poughkeepsie. I've never heard of Poughkeepsie. Keepsy. So again, this tool is really cool to be able to do that. Yeah, it is a lot. There's a lot of information at your fingertips. And short of like the commissions, you pretty much have access to almost what I would consider a nationwide MLS system. The only thing you're not doing is inputting information here. It's pulling it from the MLS. Can you search other states by address? Of course. And see who the owner is? Of course. Like that property we just selected, right? It even says owner name is down below here. Where's the owner name? There we go. Owner's fax. Felipe Tren and Nag Valet. And so, yeah, we get to have all the homeowner data. Because again, that's all public tax record data. Now, if you're not a licensed agent in this state, I don't know what to tell you on that one, which is why you probably want to work with the listing agent to get a referral fee, but what the heck, why not? You're welcome. Yeah, you're welcome, David. Are there any other questions on RPR? Okay. Ready for one last thing for the day? Because I know I've been talking at you guys for about an hour, if anything, all day long, but I know I probably have really overwhelmed you. But really, one really good tool, end of the day, it's called the share. The share choice allows you to give access to the transaction within your zipForms account. Now, this is great for things like the certain forms, because you can give access to people to forms within your transaction for them to modify and edit. Okay. And what I mean by that is, in this case here, things like if I'm representing the seller in a transaction, they have to fill out the TDS and the SPQ, right? But the problem is I cannot fill out this form, right? Why is that? Because the seller is supposed to fill it in. Now, we have a couple of ways that people do this. The old-fashioned way is email it or print it, give it to the client, let them print it, right? Email it as a PDF. They now get the PDF document, they print it out, then they start to fill it out, then they scan it, and then they send it back to you. But then what happens after those second or third scans? All their writing on these lines looks like chicken scratch, right? It's hard to read, it's hard to see, things like that. Now, the other way, which is a little bit more of a modern way, which was implemented, I want to say 8 years ago, is to send this contract out through digital signatures, either DocuSign or digital ink. And DocuSign and digital ink not only allows the seller or sellers to not only sign and initial this form, but seller one has the capability of filling out the form. So they have access to every box here to choose which one to modify or not modify, all right, by selecting it. But here's the rub. How many of you have ever had a TDS or an SPQ done by a client? You received it and you discovered that there were problems where they forgot to fill out things. Like, as an example, maybe they marked that they had a water heater, but they didn't indicate that it was a gas, solar, or electric water heater, right? And then as you're looking at it, you notice that they didn't mark that they had carbon monoxide detectors or smoke detectors. Now, what do you have to do? You now have to resend this document through digital ink DocuSign again to have them refill out the form all over again, and cross your fingers that they fill it out correctly this time. Now, when you get it back, other things are missing. So in this time, when you get it back the second time, they forgot to mark the water heater, but they marked that it was gas. And they marked the carbon monoxide, but they didn't mark the smoke detector. Now, what do you got to do? Send it out for a third and maybe a fourth. By the fourth time, the client is fed up, right? They're angry. Why are you sending this to me again? Can't you just correct it? And all the while you have to say, nope, I can't touch this form and fill it out for you. You should be filling out correctly. But who wants to do that 3, 4, 5 times? No one, especially when it comes to signing. This is where the share button comes into play. The share button will allow me to give access to the client for them to modify the form within the zipForms program. Okay, so again, let me reiterate this. This will allow me to give them access to certain forms or documents that I choose for them to either look at, view, or in some cases, like the TDS or SPQ, to modify. So this is how this is done. And before I do that, I need to change a couple of things here. So in this case, maybe I've got my seller's information, Bob Newhart, his email address, and of course, the wife, Susie Newhart, her email address. I just wanted to make sure that my sellers were on this form. Okay. So now we go back, we see here on the TDS, the SPQ, we've got the property address here. We see that Bob and Susie are the sellers. So now instead of me sending this out for digital signatures, instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give Bob and Susie access to modify this form. Okay. Now, how we do that is very simple. Over at the top, next to where it says documents here on this gray line, there is the choice called parties. Now, the parties are the people that are associated with this transaction. So my clients, my name, and anybody else's names that are typed in on a contract. Now, there is a choice here under parties over to the top left that says share. When we click on the share button, we're now going to select or choose to add somebody to share documents with. In this case, I'm going to select seller 1. Now, seller 1 is the only person that has the capability of filling out the form. So it's really important to ask your sellers who would like to fill out the form, Bob or Susie. Okay, let them work it out amongst themselves, because that's going to dictate who seller 1 is and who buyer or seller 2 is. Okay, with them selected, or with seller 1 selected, I'm going to say done. Now here, what am I going to allow Bob to do in my zipForms transaction? Well, one, I'm going to allow him to edit whatever form I choose for him. So I'm going to turn on edit forms. I'm going to turn it from off to on. I'm also going to give him a time frame to do the forms. Now it defaults to be 30 days. Now, I don't know many agents that will give somebody 30 days to fill out a TDS or SPQ. You may want only give them maybe a couple of days. So if today's the 19th, maybe I give them until Monday to get it to fill it out. Now I'm going to say next. Now I'm going to select what document or documents they can either view or edit. Now, the only documents that they can edit are the ZFX, or in this case, the zipForms forms. If there was a PDF file here, they are not able to edit the PDFs. They can view and download them, but they can at least edit whatever form I choose. In this case, I'm going to select the TDS form. Now at this point, I'm going to say save and send. And when I hit save and send, a nice little email pops up. I can write a nice little message. Hey, Bob, here's the forms for you to modify the transfer disclosure statement and the SPQ seller property questionnaire. Now I can hit send. Now in less than 30 seconds, this request goes out to Bob. Okay. Now what Bob will get is the following. So from here, Bob should get an email from me that says, Tony Breed, Bob, Tony has sent you a collaboration for your property of documents. So Bob's going to go into this email. Bob's going to see that he's got to view the documents. Now, in order for Bob to view the documents, he needs to create an account. So he's got to create an account. Now, this is free. It's not going to cost him any money. Okay. Now, you'll see here that you can create an account using your Facebook or your Google account. Now, I tend to tell agents, don't let your clients do this. Why? Well, think about all the data that these two entities collect, right? Facebook collects a lot of information about people, right? What they're doing, where they're going, what they're typing, what they're thinking, basically, right? And Google does the same thing. So if I'm giving them access to my data of what forms and telling them that I'm selling my house, right? And I'm filling out forms and certain forms, why should they know what I'm filling out about my property? So what I would do is always tell the client, click on create an account. When they click on create an account, it's got their name, what their role is, has their email address, and it automatically defaults with a username. Now they can make whatever username up they want, but now they're going to make up a password, something that's going to be easy for them to remember to log in if I ever give them access or need to have them modify the form again. Okay. So we put in a password. They have our username, and now they'll say create an account. Now, once they do that, and of course, my passwords don't match. It says account was created successfully. It's now logging me in. Now from here, they agree to the terms of usage. Okay, so they can say, yes, I've read it. They hit continue. Now right away, they see here, items shared with you will show up here, and it should come up. I don't know why it didn't. Okay, well, that's a major glitch. The 23rd. All right, let's go a little bit further. Oh, it's because I forgot to save the documents. So let's see here. Let's try that again. So select the document, save and send. Send. There we go. Of course, too many windows open. They create their account. Gotta love it. There it goes. See, even I make mistakes. Oh, goodness. Come on, guys. The agent who invited you for more information. Well, that's. Oh, gotta love that. Listing agreement. Yes, yes. Parties. Share. Stop sharing. Well, let's get rid of that form. Let's add another document. Let's try the seller property questionnaire. Change the stop sharing date. Yeah, I will try that one more time. September 9th. Save and send. Nope. That's weird. It didn't say select the document. Save. Save and send. Send. Now, if this is not working right, create an account. Wow. They didn't even put me in as Bob this time. All right. to continue with this email. All right, I've read, continue. Well, golly, folks, I don't know why this isn't working right. That should have. Oh, why didn't it do that? Yeah, the shared key is already in use. Okay, well, for some reason, it's not working the way it should be working. So I guess I might have to give zipForms a call on that one. Actually, let's just try to change the names, swap the names. I think my TC said she has a program for sharing the TDS and SPQ, and it changes the format. So they will be able to fill out everything. I forget the name of it. You're probably talking about Glide, Stephanie. And Glide's all well and good, except that Glide is Murphy. Yeah, Murphy's Law is playing games with me. Yes, you're absolutely right. Glide is okay, except that Glide is owned by a real estate company called Compass. It's no longer a free member benefit as it was. And what's scary is that now that this real estate company owns this company of Glide, it collects tons of data information about not only you, but about your clients and all their transactions. So what I don't like about it is that number one, you can't delete out any forms from Glide. So even if you were to decide to no longer use Glide, Glide prevents you from ever deleting out any of the documentation or any of the information from it. So it becomes theirs. Now, I know a lot of people have said, well, Glide has promised, or, Glide has promised not to data share any of their information with the actual owner of Compass, right? How can you ever verify that that would be true? Right? It's like with Showing Time. Showing Time is owned by Zillow. Zillow now gets to see everybody's information at some point of who's showing at what properties and which properties are shown the most. So you just got to be really careful with these tools that are out there. As much as I love Showing Time, it's a big disappointment in my mind that a real estate company owns this information and owns the data that information is generating. And I know that CRMLS has told everybody not to worry about it, but this is one of the many reasons why it's no longer a CRMLS benefit or a CAR benefit. So it's because of that data because of that data access. Let's see, don't worry, at least we all know how to go through the steps. No problem, Pat. I appreciate that. I just wanted to demonstrate this tool to you guys just to show you how really neat it can be. To be able to have that on there. I'm going to try it one more time to see if I can get it to work. So parties, this time I'm going to try it with a different name. Share. This time Steve. Done. Edit the form. Change the date. Next. Select the form. Save and send. So now go into the email. View the documents. Create. Yep. Okay. It's a problem. So essentially what should happen here is that you would be able to open up the document, and then everywhere where we couldn't, as agents couldn't edit, this client can now edit the form. Now, when they hit save, what is cool is they could give me a call or I could give them a call. And as they're filling out the form, if they ask me questions, I can answer them. Hey, this is why this section is here, what you're supposed to disclose. Can you please mark any items that you might know of are defective, or what your property has that me not living there wouldn't know. Now, what I can do is after they hit save, I could then refresh my transaction. Then I could pull up the document and I would actually see the live edits that they've made on that form. So I could say, hey, Steve, or hey, Roberta, I noticed that you marked the water heater, but you didn't mark gas or electric. Please make sure that you mark that, which one is it? You marked that you had a roof. Do you know about how old the roof is? Probably want to write that in, or estimate, or close to estimate, things like that. So that way we can see all that, and then they can resave that work again. And now we can see that the form is now fully filled out. Now I can send it out for e-signatures. So really what something like this does is allows us to be able to see what they're doing, make sure that they fill out the form correctly, and then we can get it over to them. By the way, Glide does the exact same thing, except that it takes this form and makes it into an easy digestible format. I do love Glide. I just don't like the fact that, with what's happened with Glide and the acquisition by Compass, the data information, being collected is kind of really scary. All right. Are there any other questions on this? Does it make sense to have them call you when doing this? Yes, or you be proactive and call them. So that way you can make sure that they're in front of the computer and you're there, Johnny on the spot, if they happen to have any questions. Well, I'm not sure about this, or I'm not sure. Okay, well then, to the best of your knowledge, I can't tell you what to fill in, but at least you're there to say, well, this is what this means, why they're filling out the form, yada, yada, yada. Does that make sense, Mike? Or Michael? You're welcome, Stephanie. I hope you have fun showing property. Can you share access to recorded training session in CAR website? What do you mean, Irene? What you and I went over, or what we went over today? Is that what you mean by Irene? I thought there was a way to access the recorded session. Well, I know that I'm sending you a copy of today's recording, or that the board is sending you a copy of today's class. So you will get a copy of that, but that's not really something that you're going to share with a client, if that's what you mean. But you will get access to this recording today. If not today, by tomorrow morning. So that you can review this. Now, I will say that if there are no other questions, I will say that I do have a recorded webinar on my YouTube channel that does show the share feature. So if you go to youtube.com, and from here at youtube.com, just simply type in my name, Tony, T-O-N-Y. My last name is spelled B as in boy, R-I, E as in elephant, D as in David. From here, you see my picture, you see my name, just simply click on it and then look at my videos. And I should have one here on the zipForm's advanced tools and tips, which is this class today, which is a little bit older, but it does go over the share button. And I do believe I have specifically a recorded video on how to actually do the share. So you will see how it's supposed to work. So I'm sorry that for some reason it's a little glitchy today. I'm going to have to talk to CAR when they're open tomorrow to find out why there's that glitch. But yeah, there you go. Are there any other questions? I hope you guys like today's class. I know we're finishing up about a half hour early. Is there anything else I can show you guys? Thank you very much, Sherry. Can you share your email address? Sure. I'll write it here in the chat box. If you ever need to call me or email me, you can call me at 949-586-6800 extension 104, or email me at Tony, Tony at ocrealtors.org. Well, thank you. Thank you, Amy. Well, I hope you all have a great and wonderful day. Have a fun afternoon, evening. Hopefully you've got some showings today. So thank you very much, Tina. I'm glad that you enjoyed it. Again, feel free to give me a call or email me anytime. I also do one-on-one sessions. So if after a class you played with it and you want to know how to do some other things or get some clarification, feel free to reach out to me and we'll schedule some time. Oh, you're welcome, Irene. So I hope you all have a great and wonderful day.